Magnetic Men Club. We're here on another Friday Q&A with you guys. Like I said, make sure you guys show up, post your questions, get things answered. Today is a topic that we actually posted on earlier this week. It's about the drama triangle. And so essentially breaking down the three roles of the drama triangle and what you need to kind of watch out for, how you kind of need to be conscious with these things, and why it may or may not be a bad thing for you. And so understanding this on a deeper level. So just jumping right into this, obviously, I'm Chase. I'm here every week with you guys. I've been in entrepreneurship for more than 10 years. I've got my good friend here, Jerod.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Hopefully everyone's doing awesome. Another weekend coming up. Hopefully we're not going to sit behind a bar like we're magnetic men. We're going to go live our path and purpose, and we're going to get some shit done this weekend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm down here in North Carolina working all weekend, and jumping on here. So, I fired up.
I can't imagine how busy you are with all the businesses and stuff you have going on, man. That's crazy.
It's constant, It's constant. But, hey, I got great team members like you. I got Kim, back office for all my other companies and stuff. It's all about building a team and then trusting that they give them enough power, give them enough authority, then hopefully they'll make some right decisions. And really at the end of the day, if they're stuck in something, then they call me. But most of the time it runs itself,
Right people doing the right stuff. That's exactly what makes a business blow up.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into our topic here. So let's just, I guess, to get started, first off, what exactly is the drama triangle, and how do you think it affects relationships?
Oh man, this is going to be a good one, because the drama triangle actually was created by a psychologist named Stephen Cartman in 1968. And so basically what he had found, and his all of his studies and kind of doing different research on it, was that he also coined it as the victim triangle. And it demonstrates how people take dysfunctional roles to address conflict. And it always stems from either any of the three sides, which we'll get to, but it stems from the need to be perceived as right by either yourself or others. And so anytime that there's conflict, anytime that there's conflict in a relationship, you're showing up in one of three ways, or you're showing up in more than one way. You can actually show up in all three ways in this drama triangle.
That's interesting.
And, one of the problems with it that he noted and came up with, that in any of these roles, it basically drains your energy. It keeps you from taking responsibility for your natural unconscious feelings and possibly even creating a better life for yourself. So basically it just zaps you. It takes away your powers in any one of these roles. And so really quickly, outside of the video, you have the victim. You have what he called was the persecutor. I changed it to villain, so it just resonates a little bit more for people. People don't know persecutor. So you have the victim, you have the villain, and then you have the rescuer. And again, you can show up in two or all three ways in any of these dysfunctional relationships you have. And really the relationships can be anything from school, work, your personal relationships, friends, family. It can even be global. So it's not just specific to individuals. It can be on a global scale. And we see that all the time with politics. It's always a drama triangle. Just hopefully, if nothing else in this video, if you watch this and you watch the other video, it'll open your eyes up to drama. Drama is what causes conflict, and it also causes a stalemate. People are going to dig into what they perceive as right, depending on what role they come in, and really nothing gets done. And again, it's all for that perception that you need to be right, to either in your eyes or into other people's eyes.
Right. That's interesting. Like, honestly, didn't know that you could embody multiple roles. Honestly, that's something I'm just learning right now. But it makes a lot of sense when you're trying to think about it, because like just thinking from the perspective of like, how do I identify this behavior, like whether it's in myself or whether somebody else is doing this, like how exactly is this behavior obvious to me? And at the end of the day, like if everything is everybody else's fault, or if I'm not owning up to my mistakes and what I should be doing, like maybe like I'm trying to hold people to a higher standard than I'm holding myself to, right? So like everybody else should be doing these things even though I'm not doing these things.
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes you hypocritical, right? So like being a hypocrite's a big part of it. But at the same time, like when you're having problems in your life and it's like it's because of this person, it's because of this problem in this person, and I just need to fix this problem with this person in order for me to be happy. And it's like, well, no, back up a second. That's not at all what you should be doing. So I can see how you could definitely embody multiple roles. But at the end of the day, too, like I feel like it's really possible for us to even switch roles, like to go from being the victim to being the rescuer, like I said, in that kind of a scenario. Like, do you have any personal experience that you could basically tell these people about?
Yeah, I mean, we all have personal experience if you really think about it. But I'll give you a scenario, and that can also give you a personal experience. But I'll give you a scenario so that hopefully the audience can kind of pick up, and maybe this resonates. So we'll just use a married couple, guy, girl, with children. And we'll use the guy initially as the persecutor. And so, you have the husband and he speaks loudly. He's, authoritarian. He lets everybody know in the house he's in charge. Okay. He uses blame, guilt, insults, doesn't really ever use any positive words in the family.
Everybody. Yeah. That kind of toxic traits.
Yep. And so the wife, in this scenario, let's just say that there's a fight. He says something to his kids and she just has enough. And she says, "What's wrong with you? Can't you ever just be happy? Can't you ever just recognize the good things that our kids do?" Well, guess what? Now he's her persecutor or villain. She just became his villain. And she's also the rescuer because she's defending the children.
Right.
And she's also a victim as well as the children. So they're all in different roles in that same family. So you can jump into different roles, and it also depends on how the other person perceives you. So we can also use another example of, because this happens a lot. I'm actually just coaching a guy who just started, where he's dating or starting to date a lady who just filed for separation. Well, she's not even starting the divorce process yet. And one thing I always tell guys, never get involved with women that are either separated or divorced, because you've just entered this drama triangle unknowing. So basically, let's use this. So she's leaving the husband who's the persecutor or the villain. She's the victim. Okay. He comes in now as the rescuer, thinking, I can save her. I can help her. I can be the man that he never was to her. Maybe she, has kids. I can be the best father and all this. Well, he's stepping into the role as the rescuer. But the ex found out about him. Again, they filed legal separation. So now who's the villain? The ex. Now the rescuer becomes the villain to the ex. The villain, the ex, is the victim. And the other villain is now this almost the ex-wife, not even the ex-wife yet, the one.
It's like a whole web of drama, right?
This is how it works. So
yeah,
you can see how very easily it gets tangled up and twisted, and why it kind of sucks people in, because again, everybody tends to go towards the negative on everything. And they, especially if the victim mindset, poor me, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if, I'm strong enough and all this, the victim mindset.
And it's natural. Like it's natural. That's where most people start out. Like most people will tell you too, like when you're a hero, you're just a victim in recovery. That's really how it is. And so at the end of the day, like it's so easy to fall into this trap, for one thing. Like it's really easy, even before you started the relationship, to begin falling into this trap.
Yeah.
And once you're in the trap, it's really easy for this stuff to get really complex and really hard to manage really fast.
It does. And, you know, when you go into these types of situations, you may go in with good intentions, but then the rescuer could be the villain. The rescuer could turn into her, um, well, her villain. So
Right.
again, in this scenario, I said, listen, you know, what you need to do is, you know, call her however you get her and exit out of this. Say, listen, until you're fully divorced and at least 6 months out of that divorce, you need to heal, you need to work on yourself. So by just giving him that bit of information, and he did do it, and he called me back. I said, well, what happened? I can't believe you're leaving me at this time. I can't believe I needed you. She just labeled him as the villain. But he did not want to enter into this. He didn't want to deal with the ex. He didn't want to deal with all of these problems. So the best way to really deal with it is exit. Okay. Leave this scenario completely in his situation. Leave it completely because you didn't cause any of this. You're entering in a situation, a broken relationship you didn't cause, yet you're trying to fix it. You're not giving, you're just trying to do it. And so she became his villain. I can't believe you're doing this. How could you leave me? Oh my God, you know, I just leaving him and now you're leaving me. Everyone's leaving me. So she's now the victim, but now villainizing him for saving himself, basically.
Right.
I don't want to get it. So it's crazy.
No, it's really interesting too, because like it makes you kind of think that like, is this even avoidable in a relationship? Because like it comes down to the point where like it's so easy to fall into this trap. It's so easy to think your way around this because it really comes down to clashing intentions versus perceptions, right? And so my intention might be good. My intention might be that I'm helping you, that like I'm trying to actually like help us as a relationship. I'm trying to save us, right? Trying to save the relationship, trying to do the things I'm supposed to do, whatever. In my mind, I'm helping you. But in your mind, I'm just bossing you around. In your mind, I'm just kind of being a jerk. In your mind, like I'm not really helping you at all, right? And at the end of the day, you're both right. And so that's the problem with this. It's really easy to fall into this. Like it makes you kind of think, like, is this even avoidable when you get into a relationship?
Oh yeah, it's definitely avoidable, but you have to be conscious of, you kind of have to accept where you are in the relationship initially, and you got to do some self-reflection. So, you know, as you guys are watching this, one of the things you can think of maybe in that scenario that I did is like, man, I'm the villain. Like I'm always labeled the jerk or the tyrant or the persecutor. And so once you understand and you've just labeled the problem, now you can fix it. Now you can work on it. Likewise, if you're always saying, why me? I'm not strong enough. Why do these things always keep happening to me? Why I can't find a good man? Why I can't find a good girl? That's all victim talk. And so one of the roles is, okay, let them understand, like, listen, you're talking like a victim, you know, you're not the cause, you're at the effect. So you have to become your own hero. And so the second problem that happens is the hero. This is to me probably one of the worst roles to be in, because the hero feels like they almost feel guilty for not helping. They need to come into a situation and help, but they're actually causing more harm than good because they're not teaching the victim anything. They're just doing the work. Like, I'm just going to come in and fix everything. And they don't teach.
Well, you're dealing with surface level issues. Like you're not actually attacking the core. So the biggest thing with relationships is relationships are very reactionary. They're very reactionary to what you're doing, what they're doing. You can't fix a relationship by focusing on it, by trying to actually look at it and be like, okay, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with this person? What's wrong with that person? You're going down the wrong road already.
Yeah.
All you need to do is just take a step back, take a step out of it and be like, okay, what's going on here? What exactly am I doing? What do I need to do to fix this for myself? How can I be happy as a person? Their problems are their own. Like I said, a relationship is reactionary. It's usually reactionary to whatever you're doing or not doing, whatever they're doing or not doing. That's how you focus on things. You can't fix what they're doing. You can only fix what you're doing. Uh-oh. I think you might have froze.
Oh, no.
But that's really what this is all about. Like I said, it really comes down to our clashing intentions and perceptions and all that stuff, and realizing that like we're trying to fix problems in a person that really aren't our problems to fix. And really, it's not my responsibility to fix that problem. It's not my responsibility to take ownership of that problem. Like my problems are my own. I have my own problems. And if I'm focusing on somebody else's problems and not on my own, and I'm not trying to fix myself, I'm trying to fix everybody else, that's when you fall into this trap.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And this is where a lot of men fall into the trap. And it's also a lot of they're dating maybe quote bad boy guy who has a lot of issues. They tend to take the rescuer role. I can fix him. I can change him. I can make him a better man. And so they take on that rescuer role. Likewise, drama between two exes and a guy comes in, same thing. The problem is on both of those scenarios, the rescuer does whatever they can, but they often get the shit under the stick at the end of the day. And then they become resentful. They're like, I've done all of these things for you, and then you went back to him. Or the girl, I've done all of these things to you, and then you cheat on me, or you break up with me. Because they're not understanding what role they're in, and that they're not understanding that it's not my responsibility to fix him. It's not my responsibility to fix her. So when somebody comes in with that rescuer role mindset, what we need to do is shift them into more of just being a coach. Don't get actively involved. Give them the tools, give them maybe the encouragement. So if a victim says, I'm not strong enough, or I don't think I can do this, as a rescuer, don't jump in and do it for her. Say, well, what can you do? Empower her. Say, you know what? I can start this. I can start, maybe not leave him, but I can start doing this. Great. You didn't jump in and save the day. You just kind of nudged her, if she needed it, into some type of empowerment that she can do on her own. That's what they need. So nobody wants somebody to come in and just fix their problems. They say they do, but at the end of the day, I've noticed is when you go in and you fix somebody's problems, they're no better off. You just fixed a problem that they still don't know how to solve. So now they're looking at you.
The interesting thing about all of this stuff too is that like this is kind of a precursor to a lot of the problems that people experience in relationships, to a lot of the problems that men experience that actually makes them depressed and gets them off their path. Like this is where you kind of start to fall into that trap. Like this is where it all begins, guys. Like this is where it all starts.
Yeah.
And so like if you get too far into this and you're making the wrong choices as the rescuer or as the victim, and you're not really checking yourself, you're not watching yourself, you're not examining your own wounds and trying to figure out what's wrong with you, right? When you're not doing that and you're outwardly pointing everywhere else, you start to become codependent. Like you start to need validation for everything. Like you start to concede to everything because you don't want her to be mad.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, she just wants you to listen to her. Like she really just wants you to hear her out and understand her perspective. That's it. She doesn't want you to fix it. She just wants to be heard. That's it. I remember listening to this comedy special from a comedian, Brett Ernst. And in that comedy special, like he actually talks about it a little bit. He's like, dude, like just sit down and listen to her. It's like an emotional facial. Like it's like all she's doing is she's just gonna jerk off all these emotions all over you. Just take your facial, go wipe it off, and then go make her a sandwich.
Yeah.
You have to do it. But it applies to this. It does. Like, so at the end of the day, like just stop trying to fix other people. Stop blaming other people for everything that's wrong. Because the problem with blaming and being a victim and pointing outwards is you give away all the power. You don't have any power left in the situation. Now it's everybody else's responsibility to fix it. If you take ownership of it, regardless of whether it's your fault or not, you have all the power in the situation. Now you can decide what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, again, this is kind of where coaching comes into play a lot, and all of my sessions, this comes into play because It might be a woman I'm coaching, it might be a man. It's drama. They're talking about a relationship that went bad. They're talking about a breakup. They're talking about a divorce. They're talking about whatever. Okay, I have to have them see their patterns. Like, how did you come in? Well, what did you mean? Well, you told me this, you told me that. So is it true that maybe you're acting as the rescuer in this? Yeah, I can see that. Okay. So it's starting to open their eyes that, okay, I was the rescuer in this. Great. What else were you? Because you rescued this girl, but you also villainized the ex. You don't know him. Yeah, they're having problems, but now he became your villain for no reason. Now, it might be a reason because he's, but my point is stay out of the relationship. It's not yours to fix. Same thing with the victim, poor me, poor me. It's like, listen, you are powerful. What can you do? You want to shift them from really what we call victim to creator or hero, whatever you want to call it. You are your own creator. If you don't like the situation you're in, rewrite your book. You might need help. So here's maybe what you can do. All right, I can start with this. And once they start feeling a little bit of that power, once they start feeling a little bit of their own self-worth again, then they know what to do. Then they know, oh, you know what? I need to do this. I need to do that. And the greatest power you can give somebody is just acknowledging their power and just say, listen, you're awesome. You're amazing how you are. You're just stuck. What can you do? Instead of just doing for somebody, that's the greatest thing you can do, is give them the tools, give them that little bit of maybe encouragement they need to change their situation, but don't change it for them.
That's true. That's so true too. And that's where the coaching really comes into this too, is because people don't like to examine their wounds. They don't like to look inward. They don't like to, like, let's say you're fat and you take off your shirt and you look in the mirror, you put your shirt back on as quickly as possible. I don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
They don't want to look at what's wrong with them. They don't want to look at what their problems are. And that's where the benefit in coaching comes in, is if you're in coaching, that coach or even that therapist or even that counselor, they're going to ask you questions that you're not willing to ask yourself.
Yeah.
They're actually going to come in and say, well, hey, why are you putting up with this? Who do you really want to be? What exactly are you trying to do? What exactly are you trying to achieve? Why haven't you achieved it yet? Why aren't you doing it? What's the problem? Because people stagnate trying to overthink things too.
Yep.
And so that's where coaching is beneficial. It's the coach's job to give you the tools, to show you the path, to give you everything you need to walk the path. It's on you to walk the path. Right. You have to walk the path. And so that's really what it comes down to, is then providing you the accountability and say, okay, well, you haven't done this yet. You said you want to do this. Why don't you do this by tomorrow and you come back and share the results with us?
Yeah.
Now you're accountable. Now there's a reason to do it. And so that's really why you're going to find value in a coaching program like this. That's really the main value, is the fact that we're going to make you walk that path. We're there with you every step of the way.
Yeah.
But you got to walk the path. You got to suck it up. You got to face it. You got to face things in yourself that you've avoided facing, that you haven't wanted to face. You've got to ask yourself questions and answer questions that you haven't wanted to answer. And so that's really where all this comes in. And like I said, this is a precursor to all these issues here, because this is when you start to go down the path of becoming a nice guy. This is where you start to really build into your misery. Yeah. And you don't even know what's going on. You don't even know why it's happening. And so at the end of the day, that's really where the coaching comes in, is to help you. Okay, hey, you're a little too far off on the path this way. Why don't we just get back on the path over here? You go do this, 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 and this. Show up with me tomorrow, and then we'll talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's that's for the victim, the persecutor, the villain role. That's one of those roles where it sounds bad. Always like, oh, you're always the villain. Well, you're
going to, yeah.
The nicest people in the world are villains in somebody else's story. So everybody's been a villain. Everybody's been a victim. Everybody's been a rescuer. But the key is to really understand your patterns, because more often than not, you show up as a victim, or you show up as a rescuer, or you show up as a villain. More often than not. So a lot of it is you want to look past your past relationships, maybe even your current relationships, and see, you know what? I'm always the dickhead. I'm always the tyrant. I'm always the one who doesn't give praise. I'm always the one that, that's great, but you can do better. That's more of a villain role. And the villain, you're never going to change that rigidness, because part of what a villain is, they have a very strong boundary, and that's good, but their boundary is they can't allow other people to come in and negotiate and talk. It's my way or the highway. And that's not a strong boundary. We talk about boundaries and having strong boundaries, but it's not my way or the highway. It's okay, these are the things I will not accept. The villain role goes a step further and says, it's arbitrary of what I don't accept. If I don't like it, I don't like it. The rules always seem to change, so you can't please them. They never find favor in you. They're always looking for what's wrong, and they never look for what's right. So it's very hard, especially if you're in a marriage and let's say you're the woman who's the persecutor. Because I got to tell you guys, most of the time women, especially late in this modern day feminist crap, power woman, all this, they become the persecutor. And a lot of it has to do with what ties into the masculine feminine energy. It flipped. It flipped. She now has become
when it comes to feminism, men are the villains. They just are. They have to have a villain, and it's men. Men are holding them down. So that's the biggest problem with that.
Well, it's that too, but the women have become the villain. They're persecuting each other. So the women are like, I don't need a man for anything. Well, she's the villain. She's not claiming victim. She's like, I don't need a man for anything. I don't need this. I don't need that. And then if they are married and with that mindset, and the guy didn't mow the lawn on Saturday when he was supposed to, for Christ's sakes, whatever the reason, and she starts beating him, you didn't do this, or you mowed the lawn, but you didn't have straight lines. Believe me, I've heard all of it before. I'm like, straight lines? They're the villain. And so he becomes her villain, like fighting back, like, Jesus, straight lines. So this dysfunction that a lot of people kind of just simmer in, it just takes your energy. If you look around you and you look at most of the relationships, people are just exhausted because they're fighting battles. They're fighting this all the time. They're fighting shit with their kids, their husbands, their wives. They're just fighting. And it's all stems from this drama triangle, all stems from what they're dealing with. And they can't live productive lives. If they're always battling each other, they can't live productive lives.
That's exactly why we tell men to be on their path and their purpose. Like when all these things are happening to you and you don't know where else to turn or what else to do, you turn to your path and your purpose.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because that's your mission. Your mission is to achieve that path and that purpose, whether you ever get there or not. Your mission is to stay on that path and purpose.
Yeah.
When you have a villain in your relationship, when you're villainizing your wife, your husband, or whatever, when you have a villain to go after, it becomes your mission to take down that villain at that point. And that's where all your energy goes. That's where all your focus goes. That's where everything your mind is building on goes.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, it's a big energy drain. It just takes all your energy away. And it takes you off your path and your purpose, which leaves you unhappy. And it leaves you unfulfilled. It makes sure that you're not actually achieving things in any direction that you want to be. Yeah. And you're just left with the pain and the drama. And so that's really why you want to be on your path and your purpose. That's your mission. You don't want to change your mission to somebody else or something else. Just stay on your path and your purpose.
Yep. I agree with that. I also just agree with just recognizing what you're doing. Again, you kind of said it zaps your energy, because we all have a need to be right, or at least to ourselves and to other people. This is what keeps that drama triangle going. If you just kind of told your partner, you know what, you're right, and don't even enter into the argument, things kind of your swords start getting put down, and it's always that clash, the energy. So it's really hard to get out of it. You need really good communication. That's something people lack these days, because a lot of people respond. They don't really listen to somebody and then talk. They automatically have a response. especially in relationships. They don't listen to their partner, digest it. Maybe they're right. Maybe I have been an asshole. You know what? You're right. I never give praise to the kids. Sometimes that's all they need is just to have a civil discourse and say, you know what? I love you, but you're always negative. You never praise the kids, okay, they got a B and now you're like, why isn't it an A? For Christ's sakes, you got straight C's. Who the hell are you? I've been there. I came out of the military after like 12 years. And so when I started having kids, I had that mindset because I was very rigid, very structured. And it took my wife to kind of tell me, listen, dickhead, like, we're not in the military with you. You need to leave that behind.
No,
and so it took me a while, but it also, she actually was strong enough to come to me. I'm like, listen, I'm not, you're not a drill sergeant. I'm not fucking one of your people. And so sometimes it's just letting the other person know, hey, in this drama triangle, you are a villain. You're acting like a villain, and here's why. Likewise, if someone's like, hey, poor me, I can't do this, why can't I do that? Call them out on their bullshit. Says, listen, you are powerful. Why are you playing small? If you can't do this, what can you do? It's all about just empowering them. They already have the power inside of them. Just life has beaten them down. Maybe the persecutors beaten them down so much over the years that they don't know. They have no idea what to do. But the last thing you want to do is go in and save them. That's the wrong thing you want to do. The external person going in and just fixing their problems. I'm like, I didn't cause any of these problems, but I can help you get out of your problem by just being there, kind of being your coach, encouraging you. And so the third one, the rescuer, sometimes it's good to have the rescuer thing. I believe more often than not, I've been the rescuer in a lot of my relationships. I was a medic for 12 years. I love helping people,
No, it's the same for me. That's why I got into coaching. I mean, that's even why I'm even a coach. I just get so fulfilled from watching people break through. It just is what it is.
Yeah, and you kind of stole it from me because then I started morphing. So then I got out of the medical side and I got into Scalp, my other company, and it's still helping people. It's still that rescue where it feels good to help people. But I really was missing the boat until I got into coaching because those two things, I'm jumping in and doing it for them because I can't show you how to put hair on your head. I can't show you that. And if you're bleeding out, I can't coach you and be like, just hold that gaping wound, So I was missing that other piece until I got into coaching where I realized I can do more. I can affect more change in this individual by not doing it for them, but giving them the tools and the encouragement that they can do it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to giving a man a fish versus teaching a man to fish. Like, if you give him the tools that he can take and use moving forward, then, like, if he doesn't need your coaching anymore, man, that's perfect success. Like, that's awesome. Right. As soon as somebody graduates, they don't need to coach with us anymore. I mean, obviously, they're always welcome to stay in the community, to sit in there and engage with us, to help other people that are coming through. But at the end of the day, man, like, the biggest thing for us is when you don't need us anymore, that's when we finally succeeded. That's really when everything is breaking through for us, because that's really what we live for. We want to see you guys break through. We want to see you guys really discover that one thing that's been missing all the time, because you're going to do that again and again and again. That's the coolest thing about getting this coaching and watching this stuff unfold, is like, this breakthrough happens. This person now has a piece of information that's going to change their life forever. But then it's going to happen again next week, and it's going to happen again next month, and it's going to happen again and again and again. And it's so cool to go through this with them, because they just feel like their whole life just unraveled before them. And they just know what to do. They just have so much direction at that point. The only thing they want to do is just go do it. They're so motivated after these calls. It's the coolest thing to watch. And I invite you guys to take part in it. Honestly, it's life-changing. It's going to change your life. That's why we put this up.
Yeah, that's the key. Once we can get them to the state of what I call unconscious competency, that means they're not even aware they're fixing their own problems, because they have all the tools. They've had enough success. It's not that they don't need a coach. I always still think people need a coach in different areas, but
No,
unconsciously, they're fixing shit that's come up without even realizing. They might say, yeah, I had this problem at work. Well, maybe 10 weeks prior to the very first session, that was a huge deal for them. I don't know how to deal with my boss. I don't know how to do this. They've built up enough tools and enough emotional hardware that like they fixed the problem already. They didn't know it was a problem until they look back like I already got that fixed.
Well, then you start to
That's
see problems before they even occur. Like you actually start to even like not even get into these issues because you can see what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. You have the experience now.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, too, you start to see what's wrong with everybody else. Like you really start to key into what's really wrong with people, not in a way that you want to fix it, but in a way that you understand now. And now you're like, okay, I know why you're acting like this. I know why you're doing this. I'm not going to take anything from it. I'm not going to be a victim of this. It's cool.
Yeah.
No problem. You do you. I've got tools for you if you need help.
Yeah.
The problem that you run into when you start to try and solve their problems is you build resentment. All three of these things, all three of these roles are going to build resentment. If you're the villain in somebody's story, they're obviously resenting you full time. If you're the victim and it's everybody else's problem, you're going to start to resent everybody who you're turning into the villain. And then you're also going to resent the people who are trying to help you out. And so the rescuer gets resented too. And so it's really just all this resentment that builds up when you're falling victim to these roles. And when you go through programs like this and you get these tools, you start to recognize this stuff before it even happens. Like you will actually start to recognize your wife doing certain things, your kids doing certain things, your friends doing certain things, your coworkers doing certain things. Like, hey, this isn't going to have the result you want it to have. This is probably going to lead to this. At the end of the day, though, it's not your responsibility to fix their problems. You point them in the direction, show them what they can do, give them the tools, but it's on them.
Right. Yep. And that took me a long time to realize because I would just jump in and fix problems. I mean, as I got more into coaching and I've had coaches, you know, kind of bring this up to me. This is how I got into coaching with some other coaches and kind of realized I had a knack for this, but I still had to go through their programs to try to figure out, you know, what the fuck is wrong with like why do I keep doing these patterns? Well, until they showed me this, and this was one of the ones, the rescuer role. You know, I remember a time, this is years ago, I started dating a girl and I had this need for some reason that I had to go mow her lawn. Like, nope, that's a man's job. And she had the money. She could have mowed it herself. It wasn't a huge property. She could have hired somebody. But for whatever reason, without her even asking me, I just did it. And then I started getting I started resenting her for me offering to mow her lawn. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? Because it was even like her thanks. I was like, yeah, fuck you, thanks. It's raining out and mowing and stuff. And so I had to start recognizing all these patterns that I would do. And it was me doing them. And that's a lot of this people got to understand. If you're the rescue role, no one's asked you to save them. No one's asked you to jump in.
I mean, it comes back to the law of reciprocation too. And so like when you do something for somebody, they feel indebted to do something for you. It's just natural. Like it's just a mechanism in our brains. It works for everybody. Everybody's subject to this. Every company on the planet knows this and they use it. That's why you get a free water when you walk in to go look at a car. That's why they give you a free pen when you walk into the fair, whatever it is. Like everybody's going to give you something because now you owe them something. Like even though they didn't illicitly say you owe them something, they did it so you would owe them. It's the law of reciprocation in its essence. And it's really a signature of nice guys too. A lot of the nice guys
is.
Kind of
well, no, that's that. I was going to lead into that. It is a little bit of the nice guy syndrome because you're doing something they didn't ask you to do in the hopes of what? To get sex, to get whatever. So, yeah, that took me a little while to kind of really figure that out. I'm like, shit. And I kept doing that, not mowing lawns, but in just different relationships. I had to feel like I had to step in and save the day, you know, and it didn't it didn't even take me really to my current relationship. I didn't do any of that stuff. This is kind of where I actually became the coach in that relationship. You know, she was in a pretty, you know, difficult situation with a guy. And, you know, we started talking and stuff. And I even told her, I'm not getting involved in this. Why don't you do X, Y, Z?
Right.
And she did it. And you should see it from a year ago to now, completely different woman. She's done everything on her own. Yeah, I might have just talked to her and gave her encouragement, but I didn't do anything. So we both won on that situation. I didn't feel resentful to her if I said, "Hey, come here and just move into my house. I'll save the day."
Right.
I could have done that, but then I know me, I would resent her. Like, what the hell's going on? So she got enough wins, early on, and then started getting more wins. And then she's like freaking doing awesome now.
Yeah.
And so I'm not resenting her. She's not resenting me for stepping in and saving the day, because then she'd have this thought over her head, oh, well, I owe him now. It's all done. Right. So it's all washed because none of that had to happen. So,
the problem is like this stuff can get pretty extreme. Like, so that's where you fall into even nice guys. Like, it's not just nice guys, like girls fall into this pattern too. Like, turn into nice girls and they become really codependent. They think like, oh, I got to make him all his dinners and I got to make sure the house is clean every single day because that's what women are supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately it's just all these belief systems that we have. And like, beliefs are a tricky thing because like we have habits and we have beliefs. Habits is automatic behavior that you just do. Yeah. Beliefs are automatic thoughts. And so really, at the end of the day, our brains don't like to rethink things. They like to think about something, mull over it, come to a conclusion, and then that's the conclusion forever. Yeah. Yep. They don't like to go back and rethink it. They don't like to go back and ask the question again. Our brains are lazy. They just don't want to do it. And
well, they're risk avoidant. Yeah, they're risk avoidant. It's your brain's designed to keep you alive. That's it. So it's going to avoid conflict wherever it can. I mean, you're not going to walk down into the ghetto at 2:00 in the morning with $1 million in suitcase. Yep. Your brain's like, no, stupid, that you'll die. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing your brain has that tool, but also can trick you because, again, the flip side to that is when there is conflict in a relationship, it needs to be resolved and not avoid it because it's just going to be there.
It doesn't fix itself.
It doesn't fix itself. It gets worse because a lot of times is, that added saying goes is what you put up with, you accept. There's a better phrase for it, but if you keep putting up with it, then you're accepting your lot in life.
What you're not changing, you're accepting.
Yeah, what you're not changing, you're accepting. That's a better one. But it's definitely true. So when you talk to people and you're like, well, why haven't you done this? Now, again, there's, I've written articles and stuff. There's a reason why. There's a psychological reason why sometimes when a woman just can't leave that situation, toxic relationships.
Right.
But I'm just saying as a whole, there is a choice. Sometimes they just can't see it or they don't want to see it.
Well, it also comes back to a lot of what we were talking about last week too. Like we covered this last week in depth a lot. And like a lot of guys just don't want to let go of like the girl, like she's the one. Like I can't just let her go. I'm never going to find anybody else like her again. And so it's having that abundance mindset that kind of contributes to this too, because at the end of the day, it's not your responsibility to change anybody. You shouldn't even try. And it's nobody's responsibility to change you either. It's nobody's responsibility to take care of all your problems. Like you're a big boy. You don't need a mom. And so really at the end of the day, it's just taking care of things yourself and focusing on yourself and letting them do the same thing, encouraging them to do the same thing. It's healthy. It makes people happy. It's when people start to do things for the other people. Like, well, if I put my time and energy into doing this for them, then they should put time and energy back. And they're probably going to if I do this. And so it's just like, no, dude. Focus on you. Okay, you did the thing for them. Awesome. She didn't do anything back for you. Whatever. No problem. Mm-hmm. Just keep focusing. No problem, man. Don't take anything from it. Don't turn her into a villain. Don't start to resent her over it. Just get over it. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Move on. And if it keeps happening, like if she just is really cold, isn't really into you, isn't really into the relationship, you have to kind of accept it that, okay, well, this isn't working out. This just isn't working out. This just isn't going to work out. You're not happy. I'm not happy. Maybe we should just, go about our path and our purpose and just do what we have to do on our own. Mm-hmm. It's okay. And it's okay to get to that point. It's okay to let go. The biggest problem is when you're trying to hold on to that. Like, no, I can fix it. I can fix her. I can fix this. I'm never going to find anybody else like her. No, it's just all wrong. You got to back up for a second and take a look at the whole situation.
Yep. I agree. Wow.
It can get you into trouble. It can definitely get you into trouble. And like I said, when that resentment builds, it's hard to pull things back. It's hard to get around it. And the more you try, the worse it gets. And so just stop trying so hard and just, like I said, just turn around and focus. Like, go to the gym, man. Go out with some buddies tonight. Just go hang out, have some fun. Do whatever you want to do for you,
Yep.
and then address the situation later. Don't let it go. Don't just let it fall off on the wayside. Don't just sit there and focus on your path and purpose and just let it be. You need to address it. You need to face it. But at the end of the day, if you've faced it and you've done everything you can do and you're still experiencing the same problems, like maybe you have boundaries that she's stepping over, maybe she has boundaries that you're stepping over, it's just not working out. It's just not aligned. And that's okay. There's freaking billions of women out there, man. Don't worry about it. It's okay. She's one in a billion. I promise you.
Yeah, no. And then, back to the context of the drama triangle. It's, again, guys, it's not just relationships. It could be your teacher, your student, and you're the parent. School has nothing to do with, love relationships. It could be a brother sister squabble. Everything falls into here. But one of the biggest things outside of coaching that I really feel like you need somebody who kind of understands this, that can kind of help you navigate it, but if you just let it go and kind of forget it's happening or pretend it's not, it's only going to get worse. Every player in this drama triangle kind of needs to be called out because they might not be aware of it. The villain might not know. He's just, hey, this is how it's always been. He might not know. And so it's up to the victim to be powerful enough to say, hey, every time you do the XYZ, you're making me feel like this, like I have to walk around eggshells with you. Now, once he's aware of it and he doesn't make active steps to change it, or maybe through therapy, through whatever, well, then you just have a dickhead. Like, you got to go. But he might not be aware. Likewise with the victim. Poor me, what can I do? You need kind of a coach to be like, you're not powerless. I know you feel that way, but you're very powerful. Well, this is where good coaching comes in, is you give them just a little bit. Just give them something small, which is growth. They just need growth.
Empowering them. Yeah.
Something that's going to let them grow just a little bit so they can realize, shit, I just did this on my own. Yes. Now what can you do? I can do this. I can do that. And then again, if you have the rescuer's mindset, is getting them out of become a teacher, become a coach, helping even the villain realizing this, even the victim. Again, my default mostly is rescuing. This is kind of like coaching comes natural to me because I do want to help people. Now I just do it in a better way for me and for my clients.
Right.
And so that's the whole key to this is effective communication, kind of recognizing your patterns. How have all of your past relationships been? If it's a repeated thing, like I've always been the victim, I've always been the villain, I've always been the rescuer, well, then there you go. You have a base to start with. Why have I always been doing these things? And what can I do to maybe show up differently in my next relationships? And then again, it is having very strong boundaries early on, but all sides. The stronger the boundaries you have, that strong frame, we talk about frame, that's very important so that those people know, listen, if I'm coming in as that rescuer kind of mindset, they know my boundary is I'm not going to fix it for you. I'll help you. Exactly. But my boundary is I'm not going to jump in and fix your freaking problems. The victim, their boundary could be like, well, I'm not a victim anymore. I'm actually became my own hero. I became my own story maker. I can make my own changes. That's where the power is. And again, you got the persecutor or the villain is letting them kind of change from that role to the challenger because they're still going to be very dominating, but maybe they have, instead of telling their wife all the stuff she did wrong, maybe telling her, hey, I love how you did this. Maybe I'll start doing this because he likes it a certain way. Well, then go fucking do it. Right. Agreeing to disagree on some things, but also having an understanding. And so that he or she, because again, a lot of women are villains, but just giving them the challenger role, not the villain, the villain role. Jesus,
Yeah.
All of these roles can shift to a better person, a better version of yourself. You just have to start at what role do I typically come in at? Because everybody comes in always pretty much 90% of the time the same every time. Now they
Right.
switch roles, but how you come in. So
Well, a lot of this comes down to self-awareness too. Like, yeah, you might not be aware that you were the villain. You might not be aware that you were the rescuer. The person in question might not be aware that the villain, might not be aware they're being a victim, right? And at the end of the day, it's like it's just kind of what we've always done. Like everybody always does what they've always done. They're just consistent with what they've always done. And so that's how we know people. Like that's why we look for consistency in a society, is because we want people that are consistent. Like they say they're going to do this, they do this. Okay, great. I can trust this person. If you're not consistent, you're not trustworthy. And that's just the biggest problem with it. Like if nobody knows what to expect from you, you're kind of a wild card.
yeah.
You don't want to be that person. So that's the biggest thing, is you want to remain consistent with who you believe yourself to be. But the problem is when you're out here just accepting everything that happens to you, or you're not trying to change anything, you're blaming everybody else, you're not changing anything. And so you're just accepting all this stuff, and it's just what you've always done. And so when you start to go against it, it's going to be painful. Like I said, I mean, beliefs are hard to change. They're just as hard to change as habits. Like you just got to kind of come to a different conclusion enough times for it to start to become the default. Because no matter what, your brain wants a default. It's looking for a default behavior. It's looking for a default conclusion.
It always looks for the easiest way out. The brain does. It's the easiest.
Yep. It just wants to default.
The least amount.
Done.
Yeah, I mean, it's based off survival. The least amount of energy to get out of this. That's what your brain wants to do. It does not want to piss away energy.
Yep. It's always
like to run from a mountain lion. I mean, that's what it's thinking. It might have to run from something that seriously can kill it. It's not going to deal with your wife blabbing her freaking mouth about something. Like, I'm just
brain though is like the brain thinks that everything is a life-ending thing. Like it thinks that everything you're going to do is life-ending, and so that's just what it automatically throws up. Like, hey, well, if you do it this way, we don't know what's going to happen, so it's going to end your life. You're going to die. Yeah. And if you do this mysterious thing that you've never done before, you're going to die. And so it's just always trying to keep you safe and from dying. But at the end of the day, like that's where all the excitement is. That's where all the opportunities are. You have to face it. And so you have to rise up out of your situation and change these beliefs that keep you back. We call them limiting beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. Because they keep us still. They keep us from doing things. They keep us in our bubble, in our ball, all balled up, basically. Right. And so that's the biggest problem, is that you're never going to come out of the shell unless you face these things, unless you get over these limiting beliefs and say, okay, well, maybe I'm not a victim. Maybe I do have power. Okay, maybe I don't need to fix everybody. Maybe I just kind of need to give them the tools and let them fix themselves. And maybe I'm not a villain. Maybe I'm just doing me and they just don't understand what I'm doing and I just need to explain it. It is what it is. Like everything's kind of a misunderstanding in all of this. And that's why there's so much pain involved with this. That's why they call it tension, because that's what's being created. It's like there's tension, there's resentment, there's resistance, there's drama. And so that's what gets created, because you're not the only player. There's other players in this. Your coworkers are other players. Your wife is another player. Your girlfriend's another player. And so they have their own feelings. They have their own life, their own experiences that are dictating what they think about this whole thing. And you have no idea what's going through their head. And so just stop assuming. Like at the end of the day, just be like, okay, well, I don't think I have a problem. Maybe I do have a problem. Maybe I need to look at that farther, and just take a step back and just analyze the whole thing and realize, is this even the situation that I even want to be in?
Right.
That's really what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a good subject, though. There's a lot. I mean, we could probably do, on each individual thing, a couple hours on it, because it's so in depth, but this is really ingrained in all of us. All of these three, this triad is just ingrained in all of us. And once you recognize it, and you can hopefully learn to maybe just be a casual observer in a relationship and not an active participant, a lot of this, it doesn't need, you don't always need to be right. You don't always need to have it perceived that you're the right person or you're correct in the thing. You can just set back and say, okay, I understand what you're saying. Got it. The villain, the victim, all these roles. Sometimes it's better to step back, like you said, and just observe. Observe your life. Step back from all your relationships right now and just observe, how am I showing up? I guarantee you're showing up typically the same way in all of your relationships. And then you ask yourself why. Then ask yourself, is it healthy? Should I be showing up this way?
Right.
Always feeling neglected, if you're feeling maybe taken advantage of and all this, maybe you're the rescuer role and you need to kind of get a stronger boundary and not have this need to help people that has never asked you for help. If you're always showing up as the villain and people are just walking around eggshells with you, well, I can pretty much tell you most of these villains don't want to feel that way. They don't want to feel like, oh my God, everyone I talk to hates me. Well,
right.
They need to change their own perspective. And really, nobody wants a whiny person. Poor me. Oh my God, how can I do this? Nobody wants that. So you have to empower them. You got to give them tools, give them just a little bit of growth. So let them just take off. And they'll be a whole new person like that. They can be a whole new person. So
that's the benefit of coaching too. Like the big benefit for coaching and having another person that you're talking to these things about, even a therapist or anything like that too. Like they're another mind involved. Like you have another mind on this. It's a mastermind when you're actually working with somebody else to solve these things. We call it a mastermind. Mm-hmm. And so when you have multiple people working on the same problem, you get multiple perspectives. And so you're able to now shift from the frame and the perspective that I'm seeing everything through and look through this other person's perspective and say, okay, maybe I am being a little ridiculous. Maybe I just need to change my viewpoint of everything and reframe. That's one of the tools we give you in the program too, is the reframe and how to reframe and when to reframe. Because a reframe almost always makes you feel better about a situation. Because the biggest thing too is that not everything is inherently bad. It might seem bad that you're getting a divorce in the moment. It might seem bad that you've lost your job in the moment. But almost always, when you look at the greater vision, when you look at your whole life and zoom out and look at that 30,000 foot view, almost always it's going to come to light that, okay, this was a really good thing that happened to me. When that girl broke up with me, when I got that divorce, I ended up with this girl and she's just amazing. When I got away from that group of friends who wasn't serving me, I got these friends and like these guys are all entrepreneurs and on a mission in life. When I finally gave up that dead end job and I started being an entrepreneur, it was scary, but like it created a whole new life for me. And so at the end of the day, you got to start reframing around things that seem inherently bad because they really aren't. Like everything, life goes on, man. You have so much life ahead of you, especially if you're in your 30s, man. You have so much life ahead of you. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, when you have that much life ahead of you, you're going to find a better relationship. You're going to find a better job. You're going to make more money inevitably, especially if you start working on yourself and you really get on that path and that purpose. And that's really what this program is about. Is like, okay, maybe these bad things are happening to you. Maybe you're going through a divorce. Maybe you need support. We're here for that. We're here for you. Definitely jump into the program. We want to help you. But at the end of the day, stop looking at it like it's an inherently bad. Stop looking at it like it's inherently bad. It may not be. Because like I said, if you decide to get into a program like ours after a bad divorce, or maybe you've lost your job, you've gone through a divorce, your whole life seems like it's falling apart around you. Well, dude, you have a perfect foundation to build a better life on top of now. And so that's the way you need to look at things. That's kind of how you need to reframe. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter how bad it is. Everything's going to end up better in the end.
Right. I agree.
That's what we'll leave you guys with today. This was a really good topic. I like this topic because, like I said, it serves as kind of a precursor to a lot of the other things that we talk about. Yeah. And so if you go back and watch some of these other lives that we've been doing, you'll see that we've actually talked about this stuff quite a bit. And we've talked about some really serious things like, hypergamy and nice guy syndrome and like really what a high value man is. And like I said, a lot of the problems that we've discussed through these things, this is a precursor for those things. And so understanding this is going to open up so many doors for you to unlocking what you need to do to overcome all of those other things. And like I said, if you really want to fast track and you really want to get there as quickly as possible, and you really think all you need is the accountability, the help, the support, you need a path laid out in front of you, you need a blueprint that you can follow and somebody who's going to help you follow it, then jump into our program. That's what we're here for. We actually do have a community launching on the 1st, on Monday, that we're going to be offering to you guys as well, where you can actually get additional support from us, where you're going to have courses. We're going to have forums in there that you guys are going to be able to engage on, and we'll be able to really tackle specific subjects with the community as a whole, and you're going to get multiple perspectives on these things. And so watch out for that. You guys are going to have an invite for that starting on Monday. Make sure you get into that, and make sure you guys are in our Facebook group. We have conversations in there all the time that are really valuable for this kind of stuff too. And like I said, show up for these lives every week. This is your chance to get these Q&A answered live by me and Jerod here every single week. So make sure you guys are asking your questions. But we really appreciate you guys for showing up. We want to respect your time. we know we're probably getting pretty close to the hour here. So really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
We nailed it. It's exactly an hour. We nailed it.
We did it.
It's all scripted, guys.
Exactly.
Hey, guys, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. We'll answer them for you.
Thanks, guys.